completely buoyed and inspired by the kind of trajectory that this movement has taken, the way that all of our dreams of having a decentralized movement, and I would push back against what Angela Davis said about, sister circles and feminine not being, this idea of assigning testosterone to, femininity and estrogen to female bodies and testosterone, because having, been so deeply educated by my trans sisters, I no longer have those binary ways of assigning qualities, to particular genders. But I have absolutely been living for the day, especially after having been kind of raised by the Black Power movement. Like, those were the people who mentored me, people who were members of the Black Liberation Army, also activists and academics, people like Bell Hooks and Angela Davis, but very, very masculine, single male, charismatic leadership. Like, I should be up here giving some speech that makes you, that has all these pauses in it, and that feels like a preacher is talking to you, and just has all these quotes that you can tweet, that is our idea of what leadership is, right? And this movement has, in the same way to a certain extent, Occupy Wall Street did, has completely, obliterated this idea. We really, truly, for the first time, are seeing the decentralized, kind of leaderful movement that we'd always dreamed of. We're also seeing a real localized kind of leadership. Like, whenever these things happen in these different cities, and we find ourselves constantly being in reactionary spaces, unfortunately, but we're asking to be led by the young people in Baltimore. We're asking, and not just the young people, but we're asking to be led by folks in Baltimore because they know their issues best. We're asking to be, in Baltimore actually reminds me of Detroit. It's a place that historically had Black political capital, Black political power, Black economic power, until deindustrialization, and it's been living in a kind of post-capitalist, Netherland. When I left New York after being here for 20 years and being in this complete police state, which is New York absolutely is. I can't believe they're asking for 1,000 more police when this is the 7th largest military in the world here at the NYPD. But after leaving New York, I was so happy to go home to Detroit where we couldn't afford police. It was a kind of freedom, and as neoliberal kind of solutions kind of come down on these cities, we're dealing with that also. But, looking at Marilyn Mosby, I was absolutely reminded of Kim Worthy. With Renisha McBride's case, for instance, the family didn't want to have anything to do with the rally that we had in front of the Dearborn Police Department. And this particular rally was just asking the Dearborn Heights Police Department to do their jobs, to investigate her murder. They basically just come and cleaned her up off of this man's porch. And he didn't have to put on, real shoes. He answered the door in his slippers and his robe and went back to bed that night. It wasn't like Law and Order, where you have to come down to the station and talk to people. We have such an the dominant narrative about what police do and the kind of danger that they're in. I actually attach it to media, and it's a whole another talk and conversation that I've been having about how a nation goes from being post-Kent State, post-Nixon, very cynical, very skeptical of authority, to completely believing in police, completely believing the stories that police tell, believing despite data, because the dominant narrative in this age of TED Talk and memoirs and Oprah's Couch and the narrative becomes way more important than data, right? So that if I over-identify with Lenny from Law and Order, and that's one of course, 30 television shows, I believe that these 36 television shows that we've had over the past 2 generations have made us over-identify with the police as Americans, period. I think that they're the most developed character on television. So that if Lenny calls a character a spick and plants some evidence on him, you're like, but Lenny, he's on the wagon. His daughter hasn't talked to him in 10 years. 2 seasons ago, Jesse Williams was his partner. I know he's not racist, So, and this isn't just the straight up Law and Orders. This is Luther, Idris. This is Dexter, who's killing everyone, but his home is the forensics department in the Miami Police Department. I mean, if you name me your favorite shows, I can guarantee you that they're centered around criminal so-called